why can't we have human-centric AI models for automation and be dedicated to creating an ecosystem with no losers, benefiting everyone from executives and shareholders to workers and consumers?
Welcome to a brand new episode of our podcast, Human and AI, Mind, Machines, and the Gradient Descent.
Thanks for tuning in again to geek out with us over the fascinating field of AI and machine learning and the role of humans in it. Today, we're super happy to have Mohsen Rezayat with us. Mohsen is the Chief Solutions Architect at Siemens Digital Industries Software and an adjunct professor at the University of Cincinnati. So Mohsen, welcome to the show and thanks so much for taking some time to join this little podcast. How are you and where do we catch you today?
Hi, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here with you. I live in Cincinnati, Ohio, in United States right now, but my path to get here is interesting in that I was born in Iran and came to States when I was 17. I attended the University of California, their Irvine campus, and then my studies at University of Kentucky with a PhD in engineering mechanics. I was then hired by a company called Structural Dynamics Research Corporation, which was eventually acquired by Siemens. So I've worked within the same organization for over 36 years and now lead the Advanced Solutions Group with the mandate of doing R&D across the entire portfolio of Siemens Digital Industries Software, or the ISW as we call it. I'm also an adjunct full professor at University of Cincinnati, as you mentioned, and started a nonprofit organization called Umid USA about 12 years ago to raise the income level of poor farmers by introducing affordable and sustainable solutions. So that's sort of a brief version of how I got here. And I truly believe that we need more conversations about the role and circumstances of humans in everything we do, including AI. So again, thanks for having me.
Dude, that's people, passion, purpose, they all in one. I can't believe it, dude. That's super awesome already, right? And I guess we have in Germany, we have a saying called ein Urgestein. That's typical, sounds harsh, but it actually means in English institution, right? You are there in the PLM space, right? Product life cycle management space, and also software space, and also innovation space for quite a long, right? How do you see, if you reflect a bit on the past, right? And in the past years, how do you see the software business and the industry? How's that evolved? And do you identify certain major milestones along this path?
Thanks, Uli. You're too kind. One observation I would like to share with you in my journey with Siemens is that the rate of change, which historically was linear, is now exponential, in my opinion. Reasons for this include exponential growth in the amount of computing power and available data for creating amazing AI models, doing complex simulations, creating very large, realistic 3D models called digital twins, and many more examples. Now, a couple of indicators for this in our world today that would hopefully make believers out of the listeners is that it is sort of amazing to me to think that China can identify any of their 1.4 billion citizens in about 2 seconds using AI-based facial recognition. Intel has more than 7 billion transistors on a single chip. It took like 30 years to go from 2 transistors in the 1950s to 20,000 transistors. But then all of a sudden, we jumped to 7 billion. What is equally amazing to me is that the rate of adoption of technology is also changing. You probably know that televisions were invented in 1925, but it took 25 years or 25% of Americans to own a TV. Now, compare that to smartphones that were invented in 2007, and it only took 2 years for 25% of Americans to own a smartphone. So this exponential rate of change and the rate of adoption of technology tells us that our development, operation, and business models need to evolve as well, because customers now expect rapid change, and that extends to the use of software in industry. For example, our customers are demanding even larger scale visualization, collaboration, and simulation that's given to them seamlessly across multiple geographic sites and applications. We also see that software as a service, the so-called SaaS, is becoming the delivery method mainly for ease of access, scalability, and integration reasons. These trends of rapid change in development, operation, and business models must continue in order for us, Siemens in general and Siemens DISW in particular, to successfully answer the demands of the market.
Oh, very well put.
Yeah, super interesting and impressive facts, and valid points. Mohsen, you have to know about me. I love quotes, and there's a very nice quote from Peter F. Drucker who said, "If you want something new, you have to stop doing something old." So challenging the status quo and exploring the new is something I personally really love. And I would be super curious to know, is there any quote that you are in particular interested in and that you would like to share with the audience?
Yeah, this answer is easy. My idol is Albert Einstein, and he has many quotes. I can show you around my office. I have him on the walls, the quotes from him that I really like, many of those. But the one that always stays with me is, if you can't explain it simply, you don't understand it well enough. So whether I'm teaching my students at the university or when I try to explain something new and exciting to colleagues, I try my best to explain it as simply and plainly as I can without using, complex concepts and big words. By the way, I also like the quote of goes something like this: if we knew what we were doing, it wouldn't be called research.
Nice one.
Quite often to the people around me, because they always want me to define everything for them. And I always quote this from Einstein to them.
Yeah, I will use it directly tomorrow if somebody's questioning again research and applied research. But speaking of software, right? Software in current times, I love this. It has this open source movement. Actually, an entire young generation is pushing their ideas, as fast as something to GitHub, on ArchiveX, right? If even before conferences, even if you thought like conferencing, research and applied research conferencing, they already uploaded this stuff along with code, along with, this beauty of sharing. And this sharing fueled, from my perspective, significantly also the progress in machine learning. How do you see the role of open source within a corporation, and maybe also along the line of the PLM and DI software industry?
I really truly believe that one of the drivers for the exponential rate of change I was talking about in the last 2 decades is the open source software. My own team couldn't do the amount of feasibility studies that we have done in the last 3 years if open source AI and ML software like TensorFlow and PyTorch were not available to us. Now, at Siemens, we have practiced this open source concept, but we need to do more, especially with our PLM software at DISW, if and when it could benefit us as well as our customers. For instance, let's look at JT, which is the de facto industry 3D model format we created, got through the ISO certification, and then offered to the entire CAD industry. That was great. However, I think it would have been even greater if we had also open sourced the JT toolkit. This is the C++ API library that enables read-write access to all data within the JT. Open source and offered it for free, similar to what other formats like UST have done. The result would have been a much larger adoption of this format beyond our immediate industry, such as in game engines like Unity 3D. This would have opened many more doors, in my opinion, to us and to our customers. We now, I believe, need to do the same with the industrial AI-related tools we created, similar to what TensorFlow and PyTorch have done. Because at the end, Siemens will win since we understand better than anyone else the needs of the industry. Of course, we shouldn't and won't open everything up because intellectual property needs to be protected. I understand that. But I'm certain we can figure out a strategic way of accomplishing a win-win situation. If Google and Facebook can figure out in a B2C context how to open source what is central to their environment and AI environment, I'm sure we at Siemens, the ISW, can do it in a B2B context for the PLM community.
That's nicely put. That's actually, that's nicely put. I think we have a bit of a journey still ahead, isn't it? We'll go in there. Yeah.
Absolutely.
There's so many potentials for synergies, actually. But speaking of potentials, where do you see the role of AI and machine learning in the Siemens software and PLM? Can you maybe share some use cases there, maybe even 3 or more that you are particularly passionate about?
I think this goes to really the topic of this podcast. I think generally speaking in PLM, AI-enabled machines and software are augmenting human workers' capabilities. AI-enabled systems do what they can do best, which includes like analyzing huge data sets, generating lots of design alternatives, answering questions about those designs, performing repetitive tasks, handling routine cases. On the other hand, humans do what they do best, which includes resolving ambiguous information, performing delicate tasks, and we'll talk about this hopefully later, choosing among many alternatives based on aesthetics and or marketing goals, selling what is created, and dealing with dissatisfied customers. Now, specific to DISW, we actually have many examples of such AI-enabled software, from Mendix and MindSphere applications to Teamcenter and NX products to Calibrate to Process Simulate and MOM software. And I'm sure I'm forgetting other products that have some sort of AI capability at DISW. But I want to give you more details about 3 capabilities in these products that I'm personally familiar with. The first one, which is actually in the hands of our customers today, is called Adaptive UI in our NX products. This is our modeling system, 3D modeling system. Very complicated product, many hundreds, if not thousands of menus and submenus. And what we have been able to accomplish is, with a high degree of accuracy, be able to predict what the next command that the user is going to need and bring it to them rather than making them go and try to find it. And again, the customers just love this capability. And we use Markov chains. And now we're kind of thinking about even evolving that perhaps to a deep learning model for this. But the point is that even something that seems very rudimentary could become a huge success. The next one that we are working on right now is anomaly detection and repair. Using knowledge graphs, which I hope you guys ask me a question about that because I want to explain it more. But we use knowledge graphs to integrate our Teamcenter, MindSphere, and an ERP system from a partner together. And we actually can now, in a single environment, in a browser, allow a user to monitor an entire factory, detect when there are a broken part or a machine that's not behaving properly, get the from the sensors, the part that is causing the problem, get information and metadata about that part, order that part, then once it's delivered through that same browser, get instructions for disassembly and assembly of the part, and then continue monitoring. So this is really tremendous, and it's all enabled by AI and knowledge graphs. And the third example is digital assistants. These are now in a lot of our products being developed. But the one that I'm actually directly involved in is with our Mentor Graphics colleagues in a product called Capital, where harness manufacturing is complex products. And for the foreseeable future, it's not going to be automated, because putting these wires into these small pins, at least for as long as we could see, needs to be done by humans. And humans, of course, make mistakes, and the mistakes are very costly. To try to find out a mistake in a harness, which is bundles of wires in your cars or planes or ships, after the fact is a daunting task. And we were told that if we could even save 1%, reduce the number of errors by 1%, that would save companies up to $10 million. So we are now using head-mounted devices. It could be a Google Glass or HoloLens. And we are using the camera to not only bring the work instructions to the users, but also monitor them as they follow those work instructions. And if they make any mistakes or they forget a step, we can point it out to them in real time and let them make the correction without trying to figure it out after the fact, which I say is more like finding a needle in the haystack. So these are all exciting capabilities that we are developing, and all of them are being enabled because of AI.
Love it, right? Positive and super challenging for certain pieces, right? But love it. But I also poke you directly with the knowledge graph question, no question, right? Because obviously a natural reflex in some kindness or actually complexity is BOMs, right? This is something like bill of materials, the management of the product structure, right, for the manufacturing stuff. And these BOMs, like this bill of materials, can be super large, right? Super complex, includes, modalities, you have, I don't know, images, taxonomies, or, documents attached to that. How do you envision a bit going further? Then maybe you can elaborate a bit on the role of knowledge graphs for DI software, right? That you untangle a bit this complexity, right? Or you think it's just a hype? Or will it play a role? What's your view on that?
Absolutely. I'm so glad, Uli, you asked me about knowledge graphs again, because I want to explain what I had said before and perhaps answer this question as well. Generally speaking, knowledge graphs or KGs are a critical tool for incorporating complex knowledge into intelligent systems. Using these KGs, knowledge is encoded in sort of a graph-based structure where nodes represent real-world entities, while edges define the multiple relations between these entities. And in fact, KGs provide a flexible way to capture, organize, and query a large amount of multi-relational data, the type you mentioned for management of product structure in manufacturing in your question. But KGs also provide a semantic-based perspective, which is essential for performing deductive reasoning. At DISW, we have used KGs to integrate several applications together and then use deductive reasoning for semantic search across these applications, or to identify anomalies and take action. The example I just gave before on anomaly detection and repair is a good indicator of how KGs can help connect data from disparate systems together and quickly extract intelligence from their conceptual relationships and mappings.
So, shaping AI and machine learning in industry also demands different approaches towards industrial grade, right? So what is it for you? So what is industrial grade from your perspective, and how do you picture trustworthy AI?
Well, now you're in my wheelhouse because I can talk about this topic for hours, but I try not to do that. I'll try my best to be brief. But I actually did a podcast with a colleague from Google about this topic. But trustworthy AI for industrial applications must be functionally robust, abide by legal mandates, and follow ethical principles. I talked about these bias issues before, and those could have legal, ethical, and robustness ramifications. And now, here, I'd just like to touch on another sensitive topic in the short time I have to focus on the ethics issues. Historically, the question of ethics is not raised in computer science and software development as much as it does in medicine, biology, psychology, anthropology, etc. The main reason is that up to now, human subjects were not viewed as much affected by software as these other traits. However, with the advent of AI models that we've been talking about, especially we at the ISW need to pay attention to ethical issues because first, AI models could create harmful bias. So we covered this before. Second, AI models could be weaponized. Third, AI models could allow creation of alternate reality. And fourth, AI models can replace masses of humans as part of automation. This attention to ethics is a huge change. And in my view, software developers are not ready to deal with it on their own. I can give you a perfect example of Joe Redman. He was a tremendous researcher that when he was a graduate student in 2016, he developed and pioneered object recognition algorithm that's called YOLO, you only look once. He revealed not too long ago that he has stopped doing computer vision research altogether because of its military and surveillance applications. That's a shame. Now, some people may protest the intrusion of ideology into engineering and software development when we talk about industrial AI ethics. But we don't want our developers to deal with these issues as a sort of personal moral crisis that they need to deal with on their own. I think a more organized ethics process is needed. And I bring this up constantly during DI's AI Council meetings. I'm a member of that group. And we will see what happens. But I truly believe that more attention needs to be paid to ethics. Of course, we want to be ethical, but also to remove this burden from developers and engineers that we have so that they know what they should do and how they need to behave to match the best practices that we have.
Yeah, that's a humongous challenge. And actually, YOLO, right? You know, every I guess PhD, you know, or at least interested ML geek in computer vision, right, has fine-tuned some kind of YOLO, right? At least used it, right? And I found it also quite straight and very honest to say, like, okay, he will not continue and pursue this, you know, because of its implication. And this resonates also, I don't know if you've seen the keynote on last Neural Nips conference, December, of Charles Isbell. He gave this keynote on you can't escape hyperparameters and latent variables, right? So from a software engineering, and argued a bit, a really nicely done video, actually also, that, you know, researchers just need to have broaden their scope and also their view on the implications their grounding and their contribution have in their applications. Because the most research said, like, I just did the classifier, right? I don't know what they're doing, the bad guys or the good guys, right, with that. But as, you know, these technology come more pervasive and important, it's also, you know, inevitable, that you also consider that something will go wrong or may go wrong, right? And that you need to design for these kinds of aspects. You need to, when you contribute to this field, also being aware of, this application scenarios where it's going on.
Yeah, Uli, I mean, this is, as I said, we can talk about this for hours. I actually struggle with something myself. I mentioned to you that we are developing a solution where AI assistants can sort of look over the shoulder because they use the cameras of Google Glass or HoloLens to monitor what they're doing and identify any errors. But we could use that same camera with a little bit of tweaking to also get a better understanding of the emotional state of the worker, right? If he or she is tired or making too many mistakes. So maybe you need a break, or you need to go and get some water, or maybe monitor their vital signs and be able to be helpful with that. But what stops me from even suggesting something like that is because I believe that could be abused. For instance, if supervisors could monitor their workers and their emotional state, they could look and say, oh, when I went by this certain worker, his blood pressure went up. Or when he was reading or she was reading an email that I sent to him at that time, I could see that the emotional state showed me that that person doesn't like me or is upset or whatever. And this can be abused. So we are in this quandary, right? We can use this technology for doing great things. I mean, it would be wonderful to understand that a person is tired, they need to take a break, they need to go get some water. But if that same data could be abused to retaliate against a worker, because I can now recognize how people feel about me, even if they don't say anything at all, that is not a good thing. So I guess what I'm saying is, yes, you're right. I mean, this is a very tough problem, and we're always struggling with how far should we push this and have those values that you were talking about to stop us from doing that. But all of us need to abide by those, because otherwise, again, there are those people that are going to abuse it, even though we didn't create it for that purpose. So that's the problem.
Mohsen, you mentioned before, or you elaborated quite a bit on ethics in AI, and also Siemens, like in October, they set the 4 key strategic pillars, and one of them was technology with purpose. And maybe you can elaborate a bit on what does technology with purpose mean to you?
This is an excellent question, and I hope my answer wouldn't surprise you. Being at this business unit of Siemens for over 36 years has conditioned me to always think about how what I do could help not only our customers, but also humanity in general. I really believe this is the result of technology with purpose culture at Siemens that you were just talking about. You can't be someplace for 36 years and not gain that culture that it has. For instance, I've pledged to myself to put front and center the intended and unintended consequences of digital transformation on humanity, and to lead innovative initiatives to counter negative effects that automation might have. Why can't we have human-centric AI models for automation and be dedicated to creating an ecosystem with no losers, benefiting everyone from executives and shareholders to workers and consumers? Because there's always people say, oh, there are winners and losers. And I'm saying, why? This kind of thinking and culture carries over to my nonprofit organization, where we are changing the game by placing sustainable and affordable technologies in the hands of subsistence farmers to lift themselves up for a hopeful life. I mentioned to you the name is Omid USA. Omid in my mother tongue, Farsi, means hope. And really, that's the basis for human survival, right? It's hope. We dare to imagine renewable energy solutions so well engineered that they can be delivered at the lowest cost for the highest yield. We also dare to imagine an innovative infrastructure leading to an economic model where community members doing the work are rewarded instead of the middlemen, which unfortunately are the winners today in these poor regions. So I hope that you think that's cool, right? And a good indicator of this technology with purpose concept at Siemens.
I mean, this goes along, right, with the saying, I think it was even Jim Hagemann Snabe who said, like, the future belongs to those companies that generate profits because of responsible conduct, right? And there's a lot streamed towards, the role of technology for tackling urgent challenge out there. And you have also on your profit side, right, your contributions, like, this is what you want to do. But obviously, in a world of stakeholder capitalism, somehow, right? Can we attach also great business models on the sustainability channels? What's your view on the role of software, maybe also on circular economy and these kinds of concepts, which seem to be a natural fit?
A circular economy ensures that resources which enter the economy can remain a part of it for as long as possible. It is a popular idea among champions of sustainability that emphasis should be placed on designing out waste and pollution, therefore keeping products in use for longer and facilitating the regeneration of natural systems. I think we must get away from our current throwaway culture, which unfortunately exists, especially in the US, and instead give priority to the principles of reduce, reuse, and recycle rather than take, make, and dispose. One of the key adoption challenges is that for the circular economy to have a significant impact, it's not enough for just one or two companies to change how they manufacture one product. Every organization that forms our infrastructure and economy needs to embrace this new way of doing business. It's going again back to that conversation we had about shared values, that can't just be one company. It needs to go across the board, and that's really the challenge. And I think we are uniquely positioned for this circular economy because, DISW is the number one PLM vendor in the world. And the software that we create from DISW with its vast customer base can help here. As an example, we need to do more to enable reduction by design in our ecosystem, meaning that our software should help customers design their products with the end goal of disassembly and regeneration from the very outset. And we are doing some work, of course, in this area, but I think we need to do more, in my opinion.
I agree. And I also believe that the future will look like that we generate business value through social value, so value for the environment and society.
Absolutely. I totally agree with that. No question.
Mohsen, we are already at the last question, and this one is quite a personal one because you've worked so many years for the company and you've pushed and seen so many fascinating challenges and initiatives, and you have that nonprofit where you're working. So I would be super curious to know what were some key lessons that you picked up along your journey and that you would like to share with the audience.
Yeah, we kind of have talked about some of this already. I think number one is dare to imagine big and be bold. I don't think we at Siemens, at least I can tell you with certainty that I've never been limited in what I can imagine and what I can propose. And I think that would be my advice to everyone. The second one is to not be afraid of failure. And the third one is to continue to learn your entire career. After 36 years in the industry, I still think that a day that goes by without me learning something new was wasted. And the more I learn, the more I realize how much I don't know and how uninformed I am, which is kind of disappointing, but also gives me more fuel to want to learn more. And at least in my case, I've learned more from my failures than from my successes. So I take risks and try my best to make it a successful venture when I get down a path. But if it fails, I don't panic. Instead, I do a postmortem and I try to figure out what happened so that I can do things better next time. And I think that's really something that I believe if every one of our young talent keeps those three things in mind, they would have a successful career at Siemens.
Beautiful and so inspiring. Mohsen, thanks so much. You're truly a gifted orator, and it was so much fun, like having this conversation with you and listening to you and learning from you. But before we finish off, we play my favorite game. It's called Authentic Autocomplete, and today you will be our special guest. So I will give you for the closing a couple of sentence starters, and you will just finish. Mohsen, are you ready?
I'll try my best. Go ahead.
Okay. We start out with an easy one, okay? So Siemens is
a great place to innovate responsibly.
Perfect. Innovation is
practical implementation of ideas.
I haven't heard that before. Love it.
The COVID pandemic has taught me.
It's taught me to be patient and appreciate freedom of movement.
Beautiful. And the last one, it's quite a tough one, but Mohsen, I believe in you. So if I could invent a rule for everyone in the world to follow, it would be?
It's actually a combination of rules. Be tolerant of our differences, help the needy, and above all, live and let live in peace.
I love that. If these are three if and else rules, then we have an AI system, isn't it? Just kidding. Well, thanks so much. It was such a pleasure, and I'm sure we need to continue that discussion on not only on the glass of wine, but maybe on a second, a third, and a fourth episode of the Human and AI podcast. Thanks so much for spending this time with us and sharing your thoughts. Marvelous.
Truly, it was my pleasure, and thank you for inviting me and spending this time together. And I actually look forward to future conversations. Uli, you're not going to be far away, so we're going to have these kind of conversations a lot, I hope.
Here we go. I love that. Folks out there, you stay tuned, right? There's, I don't know, a lot of more to come. You have heard it already, right? It will be. Stay bold and open-minded and committed, obviously, as well. And we hear us at the next Siemens AI podcast. Cheers.